Guys, I'm Tracy. Welcome back to Love Your Shelf. Today I want to talk to you about some of my favorite books. So books specifically that I gave 5 stars to, but I have so many of them that I've made a few rules as far as what I'm doing. So they're not going to have series, and I'm actually doing 3 different videos. So this first one is going to be like 5 authors that everything I read from them is 5 stars practically. And then the next one is going to be different. So stay tuned for what that is, because I haven't decided all 3 of the categories that I'm doing, but I think the next one is going to be like authors where I read one of their books and it's amazing and this is my favorite. So like standalone authors. So specifically I'm not doing anything with series, because there are series that I'd absolutely give 5 stars to, but I just did a series one, so we're going to step away from that for a minute. So today, since we're talking about my 5-star books for the first time, I'm going to do 5 authors that I almost always give 5 stars to. Not on purpose, but I read their stuff and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. And so we're going to talk about that today. So the first author that I chose is going to be Andy Weir. So Andy Weir started with The Martian, and then he wrote Artemis, and then he wrote Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary came out last year. The Martian originally came out first, and Matt Damon was in the movie, and 100% the book was better than the movie. I think I will always say that forever. I cannot think of a movie that I thought was better than the book. So The Martian is absolutely amazing. It starts out actually just my type of book for sure. It starts out and says, I'm pretty much fucked. That's my considered opinion, fucked. And that is my type of book because it's honest and it's real and that's what's up. And it's about a guy that is stranded on Mars alone and how he survives. And it's amazing. It's not Artemis. Artemis, which is about a female character on the moon and a heist. It's like a moon heist that she's doing, but I don't want to give too much away. So also, it was a 5 for me. Did I like it more than The Martian? No, but it was still really good. And then the third one is Project Hail Mary, which came out last year. And I put off getting it for a long time because it's like $30. And I finally just gave in. Also, I don't like hardcover, so I gave in. I bought the hardcover, and guess what? Now the paperback's out for like $10 cheaper, but that's okay. So I ended up buying the hardcover version, and I'm not finished with it yet. I'm only 105 pages in, but it is also in space, but in, like, I don't want to give anything away. So it's about a guy that wakes up and doesn't know who he is or where he is, and you get to find out with him. His memory starts coming back, and he starts remembering all the things about where he is and who he is and what he is doing. And so far it's really good. And yeah, I can't tell you lots of it yet. But do I think I'll like it better than The Martian? Probably not. I love The Martian. Like, the way he wrote the main character for me is like perfect. So I can't imagine that I'd like this more, but it is a different version because I feel like he has some twists in here. So we'll wait and see what happens. So Andy Weir, not in order, but Andy Weir is one of my faves. I started with Andy Weir because I feel like I'm gonna lose you guys later with some of my favorite authors. But I don't think I will do that with my next favorite author, which is Marcus Zuzak, who wrote The Book Thief. So he has more than 3 books now, but when I started reading, there were 3 that he was like known for. The Book Thief definitely helped him with that. Book Thief is incredible. It's so beautifully written. It is sad. It is gorgeous. The main The narrator is death, which is amazing. Like, who does that? Marcus Zuzak does that, and he does it very fucking well. So yeah, I would definitely recommend The Book Thief or anything by Marcus Zuzak. The other one I've read by him that's a 5 for me, the first book that ever made me cry, is I Am the Messenger. And I love cards, and it has a card aspect. It's about a guy that gets all of the aces. So, well, not all of them, but an ace of each suit. And then there's an address on it, and he has to help whoever is at that address. So the third book it mentions on here is Bridge of Clay, which I haven't read yet, but it is on my list. I'm hoping to get to it next year. So I'm sure I'll love it just as much. So I love cards, and this has a card aspect to it, but it's also about just being a good human being and utilizing what you can offer, which to you might not feel like enough, but for someone else it is, because we're all just trying to get through life and through the hard things. And sometimes anybody's perspective or anybody's help, whoever takes the time to give us what we need, is helpful and good. And it's an incredible book. I originally did not like the main characters. There is a group of like 4 people, the main character and then his best friends / one of the girls he's like in love with or whatever. And I didn't like them at first, but he writes really real characters in ways that I've never thought about. So I did end up liking all of the characters. There is a character in here that reminds me of someone that I love very much, and it gave me a very different perspective on them, which is why I cried, because I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about any of these things, and I should have taken the time to do that. Or I should have realized like all of these traumatic things that this person has been through and the help they haven't received. And that specific person is also very apathetic. Like, he hasn't found his passion in life yet. It's really sad, and it made me cry. But ultimately, it's a very good book. And it had to do with things that I love, which is cards. So yeah, Marcus Zuzak, also an amazing author. And those are 2 books that I gave 5 stars to. Jon Krakauer. So he was a journalist. So Into Thin Air and Into the Wild. I have read more of his books, but these are my 2 5s. Into the Wild, which is a book that he researched a death for a person in their 20s, he might have been 19, who decided to go to Alaska and hike around, and they ended up finding his dead body at this bus, and they don't know why he died. So he does like research and determines like what all he did do and what he wanted to do, how he prepared for his hike, and what could have potentially killed him. And it is a book or it is a movie, but I haven't seen it. And then Into Thin Air is honestly hands down one of my most favorite books I've ever read. So you'll know, because we're doing 3 of these and none of them are series books yet. And I don't generally rate memoirs very often because I feel like that's not right. So there's a lot of books that aren't even being considered in that I do read. And this is a memoir because it is him actually hiking Mount Everest and the story that happens to him and the people he's hiking with. And it's fucking mind-blowing. Like, I have thought about climbing mountains, not Mount Everest, but mountains in general before. And Mount Everest is incredibly high. Like, you have to have oxygen tanks to get there. You spend days summiting, and there's groups of people that go with you to get you up there. And you spend maybe an hour or 2 at the summit, because at the highest that you can go, and then you climb up, and then you have to climb down before dark. Like, it's insane. And it's a whole bunch of things I never thought about in any sort of hiking or bucket lists that people do on a regular basis, and all the work that goes into that. It's crazy. This is an incredible book. It's very sad. Like, a lot of people do die, and it's a true story. So it's a sad book as well. Apparently, I like sad books, just things that make me feel. It's probably in my top 5 favorite books of ever, like of all life so far. So Into Thin Air, Jon Krakauer, he's amazing. Is Fredrik Backman, and I did do a story about him previously, or a YouTube video, because he was in like the top 3 people that I've been reading a lot lately that I've been really into. So A Man Called Uva is the first book by him I ever read, and they're coming out with a Tom Hanks version called, it's not a Tom Hanks version, it's a movie with Tom Hanks in it called A Man Called Otto, and I'm so mad that they changed it. Like, that's such a stupid American thing to do. Like, just leave it as Uwe. Who cares if people can't pronounce it? It is from someone from Sweden. It should have a Swedish name. Anyway, Ayn Rand, it's about a grumpy old man who is a widower, and he wants to kill himself because he's done with life. And his neighbors that are very fun, and a few other people, like, get him out of that and make him realize that life is still worth living even if you don't have the person that you love. So that's very good. Fredrik Backman is amazing at writing all people. Beartown, I don't have yet, but it's part of a series, but it's part of a series, so we won't talk about it, but it's also amazing. Also 5 stars. Anxious People is about a heist / kidnapping, kind of, but it has a plot twist at the end that you could kind of see coming based on how it's written, but you're like, is that what he's gonna do? If that makes sense. Like, you don't know 100%. And he does, and he does it very well. And he writes people very well, and there's multiple people in this. They're all struggling with things. So it's also 5 stars for me. And then Britt Marie Was Here is 5 stars for me as well. So there's kind of a prequel that goes to it, but not really. There's, like, this is a standalone. Britt Marie Was Here. It's about a woman who finds out her husband's cheating when he has a heart attack, but he lives and she leaves him. And then she has to find her own way through life without him. There's also another book called My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. That was 4 stars for me. It's the first 4 star by him I've ever given. And that's just because every other book I've read from him is so amazing. So I also read A Deal of a Lifetime, which is a short story. It's like less than an hour long on Audibles. I read Things My Son Needs to Know About the World, and that made me laugh and cry. And I read And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, which is about Alzheimer's. So Deal of a Lifetime, cancer. Beartown, rape. Britt Marie Was Here, divorce. Things My Son Needs to Know About the World is like stuff he wants his son to know, being a dad, and how that goes. Anxious People is about heist and suicide, and A Man Called Uwe is also about suicide and death and grieving. So there's a lot of really serious subjects that Fredrik Backman touches on, but he brings laughter and joy and lightness into those deep feelings and those deep circumstances, while still not avoiding the other things. He still talks about them. They're still very well articulated and touched upon. He's incredible. So I may or may not lose you on the last ones, but that's okay. My 5th writer that I love is Ayn Rand, and everything I've ever read by her is incredible. I started with, actually, The Fountainhead is the first book I read from her, and the last book I read from her. I revisited it last year because Howard Rourke was like my most favorite literary character for a very long time. And I read this when I was 17, so I didn't read all of it because at that time I didn't ever finish reading books because I didn't want them to end. So I fully read The Fountainhead for the first time last year, and it is still amazing. It's just such a good story about staying true to yourself, and not giving in to society, and what that can look like if you do, and how you're not as happy. And I think that's a really good lesson to learn. The second book I read by her is Atlas Shrugged. So who is John Galt? I don't know if you've ever heard that question before, but it's a big question here. It has Dagny Taggart, Francisco d'Anconia. There's a lot of political stuff. They talk about communism. Of course, that's the main theme in Atlas Shrugged, is how communism isn't good. Regardless of what you think, there are characters for communism. There are characters against communism. Ayn Rand is very good at taking literally, she just takes politically what she thinks, and she writes characters on both sides of those ends, and she writes them so well, and the things that they say are just, yeah, that's exactly what a person that thinks this would say, and it's incredible. So have the same opinion as her or don't, this woman can write, and she was doing it way before a lot of women were able to write a lot of things politically just because they were women. And she's incredible. She writes people you love, she writes people you hate, but she writes people that you understand, because she plays both ends of the spectrum very well, and it's awesome. And on top of that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens within that. Dagny Taggart is part of a railroad company. She owns it, and she's trying to make the fastest train, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that go into that based on society, and it's just incredible. And then the last book I read from her is Anthem, which is about a person. It's about a world that isn't ideal for people, which really, if you think about Ayn Rand, that's what she writes, is worlds that aren't ideal for people, and us trying to navigate through those worlds and those societies and how we can do better. He's not a robot, but he's written in a way that you feel like he is, because of the world. They conditioned him to be like that, and they made him be like that, and then he was like, forget this, and essentially he runs away. But it's also amazing. So 5 stars, all of them are incredible. Those are some of my top 5s. Those are authors that, without a doubt, they're always top 5s for me, that aren't series writers. Who are your top 5 favorite authors that you always read and you would always give 5 stars to their books? I want to know, because I want to read them. Please like and subscribe my page if you like what you hear, or if you don't, if we disagree too, maybe we can learn from each other. Thank you so much for visiting my YouTube channel, Love Your Shelf. Love Your Shelf. It's here. Love Your Shelf. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Namaste.